Picture this. You're sitting quietly in your favorite chair, maybe sipping a warm cup of tea or feeling the soft weight of your dog curled up by your feet, when a heavy thought crosses your mind. How did my relationship with my kids come to this? You spent decades raising them, pouring out love, energy, and sacrifice. You gave everything you had. Yet somehow the result is that you're the one who feels like an outsider, or worse, like a burden. It's a heartbreak many older parents carry silently. A mother who held down 2 jobs to make sure her children never went without, only to be brushed off as demanding when she asks for a simple phone call. A father who worked overtime to put his son through college, only to be told he shouldn't expect any support in return. By this stage of life, you've earned peace, not guilt. You've earned respect, not ridicule. And yet, for too many seniors, the harsh reality is the sting of being mistreated by their own children. That's why this issue must be spoken about, openly and honestly. Not out of anger, not to assign blame, but out of self-respect. Because sometimes the words spoken by adult children cross a line. They aren't just casual disagreements or personality differences. They are sharp, damaging phrases that pierce the heart and should never be accepted. And if you hear them, the truth is clear. For the sake of your dignity and peace, the healthiest step may be to walk away. Not to punish, but to protect yourself, your spirit, and your golden years. So let's face it directly. There are 5 phrases no parent should ever endure. If any of them sound familiar, it may be time to draw the line, even if it hurts. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who may need to hear this message, and subscribe for more life lessons that matter. Let's begin with the first phrase, and it's a heavy one. When your child says, "I didn't ask to be born," sit with that for a moment. On the surface, it might sound like a sarcastic remark you'd expect from a moody teenager slamming their bedroom door. But when those words come from an adult child, someone who pays a mortgage, has a career, maybe even children of their own, it lands like a knife. It's more than a complaint. It's a rejection of everything you poured into them. It takes the decades of love, labor, and sacrifice you gave and dismisses them with a single sentence, as if none of it ever mattered. And here's the real issue. It isn't just ungrateful. It's manipulative. It's emotional abuse disguised as cleverness. That phrase carries the implication that you owe them for life. That because you dared to bring them into the world, you now carry a debt you can never repay. As if parenting, feeding, clothing, sheltering, and loving them were not acts of devotion, but obligations you'll be punished for forever. That isn't love. That's a trap. The truth is this: you don't owe your children forever. What you owed them was a safe childhood, a chance to learn, a foundation of love and guidance. And you gave that. You wiped their tears, stayed awake through long nights when they were sick, celebrated every small victory, and did the best you could with what you had. If they now hold your love over your head like a contract they never signed, they aren't treating you like a parent. They're treating you like a villain in a story they've refused to rewrite. And you need to hear this clearly. That kind of language is not love. It is not respect. It isn't even normal frustration. It's a dagger aimed at the very person who gave them grace again and again. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to debate. You don't need to prove the depth of your heart. Step back. Protect your peace. If someone resents your very existence, stop fighting for a place in their life. Now let's turn to the second phrase, one that often comes with a smirk, but underneath carries poison. You're lucky I even talked to you. That one stings, doesn't it? Because it doesn't just reduce you, it diminishes you. If your grown child says this, whether bluntly or slyly, what they're really telling you is, your presence in my life is a favor, not a right. That isn't just disrespectful, it's degrading. You brought them into the world, raised them, sacrificed for them. And now they act as if a 5-minute call is an act of generosity you should bow your head and thank them for. They expect you to be grateful for scraps, for a birthday text, for a rushed holiday visit, for a hurried check-in once in a while. And if you dare to hope for more, a little warmth, a little real attention, they make you feel like you've asked for the impossible. This is subtle control, because when someone tells you that you're lucky, they acknowledge you. They're putting themselves on a pedestal. They're casting themselves as the gatekeeper of affection and casting you as the beggar who should be thankful for crumbs. But let's be very clear. You are not a beggar. You are not at the mercy of a child's moods or whims. You are a whole person who gave life, who raised a son or daughter, not royalty. Respect is a two-way street, no matter how busy they are, no matter how grown they think they've become. And here's the hard question. If being in contact with your child means you're constantly tiptoeing, constantly monitoring your words, constantly afraid of being shut out, what exactly are you gaining from that relationship? If the honest answer is stress, shame, and sorrow, then that isn't love. That's emotional blackmail dressed as family loyalty. You deserve more than that. You deserve steadiness, kindness, and to be spoken to like a human being who matters. Yes, people sometimes say things in anger. We've all spoken words we later regret. But when those words become a pattern, when affection feels like something you have to earn, then you must face the truth. You must ask yourself if that is the kind of love you want to keep around in your life. If these words touched your heart and sparked inspiration within you, leave a 3 in the comments to let it shine. If they did not, leave a 0 in quiet honesty. Every thought you share is a gift. Thank you for giving us a moment of your precious time. And that brings us to the third phrase, one that may sound reasonable at first, but carries a sharp edge. When your child says, "You need to respect my boundaries, even if that means I don't talk to you." Now let's be clear. Boundaries matter. Every relationship, even between parent and child, needs healthy limits. It's fair for a grown son or daughter to ask for space, or to say no to behaviors that hurt them. But there's a world of difference between setting a boundary and building a wall, between protecting your own peace and using silence as a weapon. If your child chooses to shut you out completely, weeks of unanswered calls, months of silence, refusing to even sit down for a conversation, that's not a boundary. That's abandonment dressed up in polite language. Yes, they may need time to process disagreements. Yes, they may need distance to heal old wounds. But when boundaries become an excuse to punish you every time you say something they don't like, that's not healthy. That's control disguised as self-care. The hardest part? They may convince others to believe their version. Friends, therapists, spouses, they might all nod along when your child says, "I'm going no contact for my mental health," or "I'm protecting my peace." But here's the question no one asks. Who protects your peace? Who looks after your heart while you sit by the phone, replaying every word of your last conversation, wondering what crime you committed to deserve silence? So let's say this clearly. When someone uses boundaries as a sword instead of a shield, when they cut you out rather than protect their own space, you are allowed to let go. You are allowed to say, "I love you, but I will not live as the villain in your story." Because boundaries cut both ways. If they want distance, respect that. But don't carry the weight of blame alone. Sometimes people need space to find themselves, and sometimes you need space to remember who you are. Your value is not measured by how often your child calls you. You are not less worthy because they forget how much you once gave. And if someday they come back with a softer heart, perhaps healing will be possible. But your healing cannot wait for their permission. It begins the moment you accept that this cycle may not change, and you choose peace anyway. There comes a moment, and if you've lived long enough, you know exactly what it feels like. When silence shouts louder than words. When the door that once opened with warmth now barely cracks out of obligation. And then, on the rare occasion when you do speak up, when you find the courage to say how much their absence hurts, or to explain what you need, or to share the sting of their words, they look you in the eye and dismiss it all with the next phrase, "You're too sensitive." At first glance, it seems small. Some even frame it as a joke. But when it comes from your own child, especially in the middle of a raw and honest conversation, it lands like a slap. Because you're not being too sensitive. You're being human. You're voicing something real. You're reaching out, trying to mend a gap, trying to protect a bond that still matters to you. And instead of compassion, or even basic acknowledgement, you get brushed aside as if your feelings are nothing more than emotional clutter. You're too sensitive is not love. It's deflection. It's a way to escape accountability by shifting the blame onto you. Suddenly, your pain isn't real. It's weakness. Your reaction isn't valid. It's an overreaction. This is how they turn the mirror away from their own behavior and make you believe you're the problem. But here's the truth. There is no age limit on dignity. At 65, 75, or 95, you still deserve to speak your truth without shame. You still deserve respect when you say, "That hurt me." You've survived losses, sacrifices, heartbreaks that would break many people. And yet somehow you're told that admitting pain makes you fragile? Nonsense. The people who truly value you don't mock your feelings. They don't roll their eyes or change the subject when you speak. They lean in. They listen, even when it's uncomfortable. Because love isn't about dismissing. It's about showing up. So the next time those words, "You're too sensitive," come flying your way, pause. Hear them for what they really are. A warning. A signal that the person speaking, even if it's your own child, is not ready to take responsibility. That's not a reflection of your weakness. It's a reflection of their unwillingness to grow. And in that moment, remember, you don't have to argue. You don't have to beg to be understood. And you certainly don't have to accept the label of too sensitive when all you're doing is being real. If they won't see you clearly, that is their loss, not yours. Now let's talk about the fifth phrase, and this one. This one is especially cruel. At first, it can sound logical, even reasonable. But underneath, it's cold as ice. It's when your child looks at you and says, "You've had your life, now let me live mine." That stings because it's dismissive. It suggests your time is over, your value has expired, and your role is irrelevant. It implies that love has an expiration date, that you only mattered when you were changing diapers, paying tuition, or handing over car keys. But let me ask you this. Does love end just because someone grows up? Of course not. So why should respect? Yes, your children are adults now. They deserve independence and space to shape their own futures. But adulthood doesn't mean cutting the very people who raised you out of the picture. It doesn't mean treating your parents as outdated chapters in a book you've outgrown. If anything, true adulthood should deepen appreciation. It should bring gratitude, maturity, and a clearer recognition of what parenting really costs, physically, emotionally, financially. And yet, some children toss that phrase out like a shield. "I need space. I'm living my life now. Don't interfere." But underneath what they're really saying is, "Don't ask for anything. Don't expect anything. Don't remind me of what I owe." It's harsh, but it's true. That phrase often hides an unwillingness to acknowledge responsibility. It isn't about healthy boundaries. It's about emotional disconnection. It's about cutting the ties that bind them so they can live guilt-free. But here's the truth. You don't need to carry their freedom on your back. You can love them and still step away. You can wish them well while protecting your own peace. Because if being part of their life means constantly being told you're intrusive, outdated, or in the way, then that isn't a life worth begging for. You're not obsolete. You're not a relic. You're still here. You still hold wisdom, warmth, and value. And if someone, even your own child, cannot see that, it's not your job to keep proving it. Now I know this isn't easy. I know there's a voice inside you whispering, "But they're my baby, I can't let go." And I hear that. I understand that. But love without respect is never enough. You deserve kindness. You deserve consistency. You deserve honor. And if all you're receiving are crumbs, sarcasm, guilt trips, shame, neglect, then it's not only acceptable but necessary to say, "I still love you, but I will not beg to be loved back." Because here's the truth so many overlook. Your peace is not selfish. Your peace is sacred. And the longer you remain in a dynamic where your heart is bruised again and again, the harder it becomes to heal. No one, absolutely no one, is entitled to mistreat you just because they share your blood. So what do you do when you hear those words? You pause, you breathe, and you remember who you are. You are a survivor, a provider, a protector, a builder of legacies. You are someone who gave, sometimes too much. And it's time to give back to yourself. Walk with your head high. Let go with grace. Choose yourself, not out of anger, but out of deep self-respect. Because you deserve peace. And peace does not beg. There's a unique kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you nurtured, the ones whose first word you cheered for, the ones you sat up with when they burned with fever, the ones you prayed over and poured every ounce of yourself into. And when that same child grows up and begins to wound you instead of warm you, it doesn't just hurt, it shakes your entire sense of reality. You start questioning yourself. Did I fail? Was I too harsh? Was I too lenient? Did I call too often? Not often enough? And here is something you need to hear with absolute clarity. Love does not guarantee gratitude. Doing your best as a parent does not guarantee perfection in a child. Sometimes, no matter how deeply you loved, no matter how hard you tried, people still grow into adults who choose distance, disrespect, or coldness. That is not your fault. Aging brings perspective. In your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you realize how precious your energy is, how limited your time has become. And with that awareness, you suddenly see you do not have the years to keep chasing people. Yes, even your own children, who make you feel small. Now, to be clear, not all adult children behave this way. Many are kind, devoted, supportive. But for those who aren't, for those who weaponize your age, your longing, your vulnerability, you do not have to keep offering your heart for them to trample on. And that realization is your turning point. Because many of us were taught, especially in older generations, that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, that loyalty means endless sacrifice. But here's the truth. Peace is more important than tradition. Boundaries aren't bitterness, they're balance. And letting go of someone who consistently disrespects you isn't unloving. It's healthy. Yes, they are your children, but you are not their doormat. You are not simply a holiday phone call, a financial backup plan, or an inconvenience to be tolerated. You are still a whole human being, still a soul with dignity, still a parent, even if they've forgotten how to treat you like one. And maybe you're not ready to walk away completely. That's okay. These choices are never simple. But you can start by reclaiming your emotional space. You can stop waiting by the phone. You can stop bending your life to their moods. You can stop explaining your worth to someone determined not to see it. And you can start nurturing your own joy again. It's not too late. You're not too old. Your story is far from over. Go where the love is. That may mean deepening friendships, joining a new community, or even discovering that your own company is more than enough. Because the loneliest feeling in the world isn't being alone, it's being in a relationship where your presence is unwanted and your voice unheard. So let me remind you of something powerful. Your age does not make you disposable. It makes you rare. It makes you seasoned. It makes you a living library of wisdom, memory, and strength that no one else can replicate. And if your children cannot recognize that, if they choose to dismiss, guilt, or manipulate you, then you must find the courage to lovingly detach. Yes, you can still love them. Yes, you can still hope the best for them, but from a safe distance, from a place where your joy is no longer dependent on their choices, from a place where you can look in the mirror and say, "I am enough," even if they never say thank you. And you are. You are enough. You gave your love. You gave your life. And now it's time to give yourself something you've given others for decades: compassion. And so, after everything you've given, after all the years of pouring yourself into others, there comes a new chapter, one not defined by what you've lost, but by what you can still create. This chapter is about finding joy in the present moment, not waiting for someone else to hand it to you. Instead of replaying the past or chasing after what others refuse to give, begin to notice the small treasures already within reach. A quiet morning walk where the air feels crisp against your skin. The comfort of a favorite book that takes you to another world. The gentle act of planting flowers and watching them bloom under your care. Or the warmth of hearing an old song that carries you back to a memory worth holding. These are not trivial things. They are reminders that meaning is not only found in big gestures, but in the rhythm of daily life. And when you allow yourself to savor them, you begin to see that your life is still full, even if others fail to see it. But joy is not only personal, it grows when shared. Aging does not make you invisible, though society sometimes tries to suggest otherwise. You still carry wisdom, stories, and experiences that no one else can replicate. By sharing them, you remind yourself and the world that your voice still matters. Join a local group, contribute to your church, volunteer in your neighborhood, or simply mentor someone younger who needs guidance. These acts are not about filling time. They are about affirming value. Because here's the truth: your worth does not fade with age. It expands. You are not just someone who once gave. You are someone who still has something to give. And in choosing to embrace the present while offering yourself to the community around you, you reclaim a powerful truth. Your life is not over. It is unfolding, and it still carries beauty, purpose, and connection every single day. In the end, life in our later years is not defined by what others give us. It's defined by what we choose to notice, nurture, and create for ourselves. The truth is, joy doesn't always come from grand events or constant approval. More often, it arrives quietly, in the morning walks that clear your mind, in the songs that remind you of who you've been, in the flowers that bloom under your care, and in the conversations where you finally feel heard. These moments are proof that life still holds meaning, no matter what anyone else says. And beyond the walls of your home, there is a community waiting for your presence. You are not invisible. You carry decades of wisdom, resilience, and lessons that younger generations desperately need. Whether you share them in your church, through volunteering, or by simply lending a listening ear to someone who feels lost, you leave an imprint that cannot be erased. Purpose is not found only in the past. It's alive in every choice you make today. So remember this: you are not finished. You are not done. Every day is another chance to honor yourself, to seek peace, and to give from a place of strength rather than sacrifice. Your life still matters. Your story still matters. And your voice still matters. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone else may be waiting to hear the same reminder. Like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more conversations that honor your journey. Because together we can remind the world and ourselves that aging is not the end. It's a new beginning.